The reserve list is never going away, and this is why you need to know what cards are selling and which values to place on these cards. This is the weekly installment of the reserve list top 10 hottest selling cards, June 14th to the 22nd of 2024. This video has got some news to share with you. Hi everyone and welcome back. MTG Moxman here. Thanks again guys for hanging out with me for another installment of the Reserve List Top 10. A reminder, if you enjoyed today's content, to like and subscribe to the channel. Show that support by hitting that subscribe button. You can also use my TCG Player affiliate link. Whenever you shop on TCG Player, if you've used my link, we get a kickback of 3.5%. I appreciate it. Thanks again. Now let's dive into this, guys. I'm going to do this a little bit differently this week. You'll see the cards flying by, but there's a lot of information I need to convey, which means I'm not going to read off all the numbers this week. I want to talk to you about what's going on. So, the reserve list has that 572 cards, okay? And of those cards, there's probably about 100 that are regularly traded, bought, and sold on the reserve list. There's also cards that are barely ever mentioned on the reserve list because they have no place. If no deck is using them, if nobody is using that card and making a deck with it, then it doesn't really get noticed. It doesn't have a place. It doesn't have a need or a desire to be bought or sold, so it's often ignored. Now, that can change if there's a buyout. That can change if Wizards of the Coast creates a new card, and that new card lends to itself a new value point for the unknown card up to that point. And then the card gets recognized, people start noticing it, and that's how a buyout would normally happen. It's like, oh my god, this card's so amazing. We're going to buy this card out right now, and we're going to start using it. But then, those are the unknown cards, and they can come and go, and the market can hit and miss with those literally for years. A card can be $1, go up to $50, the FOMO wears off, and it goes all the way back down to a couple of dollars. Usually, though, what we've witnessed so far recently in the last couple of years in the reserve list is the pricing never falls back to where it used to be. It never falls to the all-time low. It seems to keep somewhere above the original price, even if it is only a minuscule amount. Now, going forward with cards like you're witnessing right now, I'm showing you Mox Diamond. These are the cards that are not the mediocre of the bottom. These are the higher tier cards, okay? When you talk about Mox Diamond, when we talk about Gaia's Cradle, Sarah's Sanctum, these are the mid-level, higher-end cards that a lot of players dream of getting. They hope to own one day. They hope to either come across one really cheap without getting scammed, or they hope to save for the money. And let's face it, in the case of a lot of players, they are literally hoping that at some point the reserve list gets broken and all these cards become super cheap. Now, of course, that doesn't stop players from proxying cards already. If they really want these cards cheap, they can go out and proxy them. But for a lot of players who are hoping they break the reserve list, there's just something about owning the real card, whether it's been reprinted by Wizards of the Coast or not, and that's why you usually will see things like collector edition cards selling so well, is it was still produced by the company. It was still made by Wizards of the Coast, and that holds a certain value to people, knowing it didn't come from a third-party, non-existent entity related to Wizards of the Coast, who just put some flashy artwork and chose the same words. It is an actual card created by the company. And that's why things like 30th Anniversary are a good idea, but fail to be executed properly by the greed of the company. And that's something you can't forget, because when we're looking at the cards and looking where the sales are going, from week to week, when a new release comes out, and in the case of Soldevi Excavations, that's us talking about the card. But when you look at the uses of the cards, and Soldevi lets you scry, you got Mox Diamond lets you tap for any color, it makes you discard a card. There's a lot of uses in old cards, and some of them, of course, are far more valuable than others. There's a reason why a Tabernacle of Pendrell Vale, why we have the Candelabra of Tanos at certain value points, and the Power 9, of course, being, Time Walk, Time Twister, of course, all the Moxen, Black Lotus, right? Ancestral Recall. There are reasons why the cards have value. And that value to these cards is why players want to own them, because they recognize how awesome they are. Now, when I look at the cards we see on the list this week, you'll see a lot of low-end cards as we go along that don't have a lot of value. But that doesn't mean they're not valuable to a person buying them. That doesn't mean they're not valuable to a collector who desires these cards and wants to own them long term. This is what we've noticed in the last 3-4 months. some of these mini buyouts going on, some of these cards disappearing. They're not just because of Modern Horizons 3, like in the case of Scorched Ruins here, or Lotus Veil, or any of these cards that tap for multiple mana. These lands get bought up because of the reserve list is a valuable option to them, but also because they are a card that is going to be utilized inside of a new deck creation, in this case Eldrazi decks, where they need massive mana sources and they want to be able to pump it out, and newer cards have made it a much more viable option. But the reserve list itself builds into it a certain level of value, knowing you're not going to get ripped off and scammed for your money. Knowing this card's not coming back means even if it falls out of favor, even if the FOMO wears off and this card goes from an $80 card to a $40 card, it's not getting reprinted. So the next time it comes around that this card is needed and a lot of players buy into it, maybe instead of being an $80 card, it's a $120 card. And then it falls back down to $60. In the case of a Didgeridoo right now, this card used to be $1. Then it went up to like $50, $60. And now it's back down to $8. But it didn't go back down to $1, did it? No, because Wizards of the Coast has shown us that they'll print more Minotaurs. More Minotaurs are coming out. More of these creatures will be created over time, and eventually some tribal theme will appear, making this card a truly broken option. And players take advantage of the low market to buy some. They're going to buy a few, they're going to buy a lot. There are reasons why they're picking it up, and not all of them have to make sense. It's their money, their hobby, and they will choose to enjoy that hobby any way they see fit. And everyone can ridicule, criticize, curmudgeon with the pitchfork, and want to burn the house down Frankenstein style, but that's not going to stop a player from buying the cards they want to buy. It's an open market, it's unregulated. Now, look at this card, Heart of Yavimaya, okay? Now, this one I'm going to read to you guys. When the Heart of Yavimaya comes into play, sacrifice a forest or bury the Heart of Yavimaya. You can tap to add 1 green to your mana pool, or a target creature gets +1/+1. Well, what creature needs a targeting ability? Well, yeah, it's the Nadu card right now. That's why this card's being bought. 55 copies, it's $112. This is somebody hoping to speculate on the card to make a few bucks, flip the card at $5, $6, they triple their money, and they rotate that into a dual land or whatever. There's reasons why some of these things happen, and the failure for players to recognize that, that's on them. Okay, that is on other players. But telling somebody not to buy something or it's not fair because it's not getting reprinted, well, I don't own a Maserati. I don't own 20 homes and a vacation property in a different country. That's not in the cards. Get it? Not in the cards? Well, that's just how it is sometimes. You're not going to get everything you want just because you think it should be cheap and free. That's not the way it works out, unfortunately. That's not how we live as a society. You have to fight for what you want. You've got to work hard for what you want, and you've got to find ways without breaking the law to get the things you want to get. And in the case of all these reserve list cards that players may want to own, you got to find a way to buy them. You got to find a way to save up and trade in and work your way up to those cards. And it's what many of us have aspired to do over the years to build our collections ever bigger. But just like in the real world where the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, the richest Magic card players tend to continue to gain value and gain wealth because they buy at the lows and they sell at the highs when the FOMO kicks in on a lot of these cards. Why was somebody not buying cards like Lotus Veil, like Scorched Ruin a year ago when they were $25, when they were $10? Why didn't they get bought then? Because people didn't care. They cared when a card came along, making it valuable, making them desire it, and then the FOMO kicks in. But if they'd been paying attention to the market and watching what was going on and saw the all-time lows, they could have picked up 4 copies for $40, called it a day. Somebody did, and somebody made a lot of money. That's usually a richer player who can indulge in those speculations and not really worry about losing money. Again, it's on the reserve list. It's not really going anywhere. And for every player who hopes the reserve list is going to go, every time you see reserve list cards bought and sold, it's more like mini nails in coffins blocking the ability of it being reprinted because there's so much value in the cards. Wizards may find ways around it. They can create snow-covered dual lands. They can put different types of word etiquette on these cards to make them playable, make them kind of circumvent the reserve list, but they can't truly break it. And that's where the market finds itself, right? You know, you have to understand where you're playing, understand the rules of the sandbox, and work within those rules to come out ahead. And players who pay attention to the MTG finance, like myself, who play the market and look at how things are going, no, I don't buy nearly as many cards as other people, but I do take advantage of lows. I do mention it on the channel to people, and there are people out there who can take advantage of that and come out ahead. And you got to respect the people who take the chances to speculate. That's why they get the rewards of that speculation. So either way, I think it's a fascinating time. And I'm glad we got time just to talk about this instead of just going over the prices and everything. You still get to see the prices and the cards, but I just felt this is one of those moments. It's like there's a lot going on, a lot of sales in the market, and I think it's time players start recognizing it's not going anywhere. And if you want cards, you better work toward those goals, because eventually things are going to flip on their ear, and I hope people are ready. Hey guys, a big shout out and thank you to the fantastic patrons of the channel. Because of their support, we're able to make daily uploaded content for everyone on YouTube to enjoy. So I just want to take this moment to again thank all the wonderful people who support this channel. A reminder, guys, daily content doesn't come easy, but because of you, we get to make it happen. So I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow. To my patrons, to my YouTube membership members, thanks again. Okay, you're here at the end. Now, you know it's the ramble jamble time. This is that moment where we go over everything in detail and I give you specifics about absolutely nothing. Okay, first off, a couple of Time Walks sold, a couple of Ancestral Recalls sold, including a beta, 2 Black Lotuses sold. We also had a smattering of like dual lands. A lot of reserve list cards are moving. A lot of these cards are trade-ups. Stores don't have a lot of stock, so there are some issues with supply and demand, and more things are moving on to special Facebook groups. You guys need to be aware of this. But at the same time, I get these emails and comments from people who just feel they deserve something. I should have it because it's a card, it should be cheap. I get that, and I sympathize and I empathize with it. I get it, but at the same time, as soon as you put the analogy of, does everyone get to have the same car? Does everyone just get to drive a car whenever they feel like it, with or without insurance, because they deserve to? It's not the way it works, and that's where things fall off the rails. Sorry if you hear noise out there, but there's noise in the neighborhood. It's just funny when you put it that way. So I'm just going to keep accumulating, buying the cards I like, buying cards here for the channel. It's going to be awesome. Stop buzzing out there. All right, I'll see you guys in the live stream. Have a great one. We deserve it.